There's Homer Simpson, there's Ward Cleaver, and then there's Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph is the man, because Saint Joseph is the model for all Christian fathers. Saint Joseph leads the Holy Family, but how does he lead that Holy Family? 3 things. He listens, he responds, and he protects. Saint Joseph listens, he responds, and he protects, in that order. So first of all, the first thing that Saint Joseph does is he listens. He listens to the voice of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord comes in 3 dreams to speak to Saint Joseph. Now God may speak to you in dreams, but more likely he speaks to you through human experience, through interaction with other people. And that's because of the incarnation, which we celebrate in this octave of Christmas. God became flesh, so he constantly uses other people to communicate the Son of God to us, to communicate his word to us. So pay attention to a daily life, and you will find messages from God that show you how to live your life. And listening itself is not a passive activity, it is an active activity. The angel tells Joseph, well, I want you to remain there in Egypt until I tell you. Do you think that was an answer he wanted to hear? He didn't know how long he had to be there in Egypt. There wasn't a calendar. Waiting for God is hard for us too. And we oftentimes don't want to have that period of waiting. But waiting for God helps us to grow in the virtue of trust. That's how God makes us holy. He doesn't tell us the whole plan all at once because he wants to teach us to trust in him. So the first thing of all that St. Joseph does is he listens. But then St. Joseph responds. And he responds with alacrity. That is, he responds right away. He doesn't wait until the morning to get the Holy Family up for the day. He actually goes right there during the night and responds to the voice of the Lord. And in responding, St. Joseph does something critically important. He recaps the foundational event of the Exodus once he goes into Egypt. Because now he is like, St. Joseph is like the one who is taking care of the Holy Family. St. Joseph is the one who is now bringing Jesus, who is the new Israel, the new Moses, out of the Holy Land, out of Egypt, into the Holy Land, to bring about a miraculous deliverance from slavery, even more miraculous than the first Exodus. Because now, Jesus, the new Moses, will bring about liberation from sin and death. That's the beautiful parallel that's going on in this Gospel of Matthew, which we're now hearing in this first liturgical year, year A, the Gospel of Matthew, which was written for a Jewish audience. So great things happen when we respond to God quickly. Just as they happen to Joseph, so too they can happen to us as well. So St. Joseph listens, he responds, and he protects. St. Joseph protects, and he protects the Holy Family from evil. It was dangerous to travel by night back then. It's not as if St. Joseph had a kind of GPS or some kind of personal assistant to help him to get to Egypt. And there could have been a tragic thing that happened along the way. St. Joseph could have been beat up and Mary compromised, and the child could have been killed. And of course, the return trip back to the Holy Land wasn't a picnic either. In fact, the first emotion that St. Joseph feels when he gets back into the Holy Land on the way to his destination is fear. St. Joseph and the saints were a lot like us. It's not as if everything's easy for the saints or for St. Joseph to do. He has to persevere in time of difficulty. He has to persevere in the time of fear. And that virtue that helps us to get through fear and to function, even though we're very afraid, is called fortitude. Fortitude is the virtue that helps us to keep going, even even when we're afraid. That's what St. Joseph had. Why was St. Joseph so afraid? Because as he was on his way to the Holy Land, intending to go back home to Bethlehem, he found out about the evil deeds of Archelaus. And Archelaus was one of the 3 sons of Herod the Great. Herod was the one who killed all the babies. And this rotten fruit didn't fall far from the rotten tree. Because this Archelaus was brutal. He killed 3,000 pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem for Passover. And as a result, there were revolts all over the land. So St. Joseph was afraid for those children. But he had the virtue of fortitude to continue protecting them from evil anyway. He just had to go to a new destination. That's why he went north to the land of Nazareth. This virtue of fortitude is very important and is critical when you are protecting others from harm. Fathers out there, you have a particular charge to protect your family from evil, and that requires the virtue of fortitude. In particular, you're called, and moms as well, are called especially to emphasize the fact that not only is love unconditional, and are the children unconditionally loved, but also there must be conditional love. Psychological studies show that the most well-adjusted adults have a combination of unconditional and conditional love. And conditional love means saying no to things. You know that better than I do. Saying no to your children is for their greater good. They may not recognize it at the time, but later they will appreciate it. For example, one time when I was a young little kid, I was at a store and I found a piece of bubble gum and I stole it. Didn't know that was wrong. I was only 17 at the time, actually. Just kidding. No. And so then he took this. I went to the car, had my bubble gum, and my dad was enraged. He was just the honest man, you know. So we marched right on back to that counter before I could even chew it. And I learned my lesson, right? Here it is, 8,000 years later, and I still remember it. And that's what dads are called to do for their children, to be able to say no in a loving way. So to conclude my homily, fathers, are you spiritually leading your families with your wives? Do you initiate prayer? Do you initiate it? Not just right before bed with your kids, that's good, but also with your wife. So you can both together listen to the voice of the Lord. Fathers, do you listen to your wife? Do you listen to your wives? Do you listen to your children? And fathers, do you respond to the things that God wants you to do with alacrity? Do you do things like bring them to Mass? You have. Thanks be to God. And also, fathers, do you protect your families from evil? That's your particular job, is to protect your families from spiritual harm. Do you protect your children from the evils of porn, of habitual lying, or having relations before marriage, or other things? Do you stand up for right, no matter what your kid says? It is your specific job to challenge this immoral behavior in a kind way and show them how this behavior doesn't make them happy, but leaves them empty in the end. Challenging bad behavior is not happening in our world today, my friends. And I believe that's because it's not happening as much as it should in the family. And that's the root problem for many, many, many of our problems in our world today. So fathers, I invite you, please don't delegate the spiritual formation of your children solely to your wives. It's your job as well as theirs to bring about the complete spiritual formation of your children. All men are called to be fathers, whether they have a physical family or a spiritual family like I do or whatever. We're all called to be able to listen, respond, and protect so that all of the families we're familiar with may become one day holy families.